May it please the court.
Yes, ma'am.
Music. Have you ever stopped to think about the power that music has? To everyday people, a song can take them back in time and remind them of something good where maybe reminds them of their first love. Music has that same power that when it's heard, it can take a person back to a place that's sad. Maybe it's their first heartbreak. But what you've heard in the form of music is so different than what you probably encountered. Instead, it's a type of music that a man makes so that he can tell the world, announce to the rival gang that here he is, that he's not ducking any action, and that he's on the hunt. That is, he's riding this flat. He's with JB them. They disrespect little Kendra, so they're spraying him. Where your house? We're coming there. Where's your house? That was a house on January 29, 2016. That was where his hunt ended. That's where he and his other cohorts stopped their car and started spraying bullets. Not because he had a personal animosity towards Ducci, but because Ducci and his friends were caught slipping. They were on live, pull up, rapping their rap, and he caught them slipping. Unfortunately, tragically, life was lost. And it wasn't the person they were aiming at. That is, it was Abe McClendon who lost that day because he was on the hunt. He was on the hunt. You don't have to hear it from a 10-time convicted felon. You see it on video. You hear it from his own mouth. You see him waving his guns. He's not trying to impress Ashley Clark. Instead, he's trying to up a rank in his criminal game. It's that simple. There he is. Another video. Hanging out. Calling out. Slide, and then he ends the video. This is how they communicate with one another. For the whole world to see. Back in the day, it used to be so different. That is, you go up in the street, you embarrass somebody, maybe your little cohort see it. That's not what we live in. In 2016, it's for the entire world to see if they care to pull it up. It is the ultimate embarrassment. And all these guys have, this is not rap videos to show how successful they are. This isn't them bling-blinging it. It's not them holding out gold chains. The only thing that they hold are guns. That's not success. That's violence. The only reason why he's making this music, putting on Facebook, is so that he can be a part of the biggest, baddest, violent gang in town. 187 tries to one-up them? No. Here we go. We're in your hood. Where are you? You're ducking action. Calling them out. Because the only thing that matters in this street, in this reality, is respect. Respect. And he's always disrespected them. Presumption of innocence. You heard a lot about it. He's entitled to it, and he's entitled to it because you have gained so much more information than when you were way out there on those benches. So much more. That is, the law says that you can't prejudge a man just because he's sitting on that side of the aisle. You can't. But what the presumption of innocence does not do is forever conceal his actions from you. You have gained so much more information than you had before. You've seen all of these exhibits. You've seen all of the videos. And you're able to now make a decision, and that's what we're asking you to do. The presumption of innocence is gone. The actions that he committed on January 29, 2016 are forever and eternally exposed. It is evidence that cannot be ignored. It is not evidence that can be excused away. Instead, it is evidence that thoroughly explains and gives every answer to every question you could possibly have about who committed this crime. And it wasn't Sanquan Bradford. It was Henry Hayes and his best friend, Kwame Richardson, just blow, just shoot. Let me read the rest of it. I'm going to go into it. Counsel read the entire instruction that I anticipate the court's going to tell you. A reasonable doubt cannot be these. It is not a mere possible doubt, speculative, imaginary, or forced doubt, and such a doubt must not influence you to return a verdict of not guilty if you have an abiding conviction of guilt. And where counsel stopped in his reading is that if you don't have a reasonable doubt, then you must find the defendant guilty. You can't raise the burden because this guy is 16 years old. You can't raise it. It's the same for any crime. We've been operating on it for over 200 years. You said you wouldn't, so we're going to hold you to it. Let's talk about some of the defense arguments that were made. That is, counsel argued too that Tamisha Brown is making up the ID of Henry Hayes, and she couldn't have seen the defendant because the sun was setting in the west, and somehow there was some kind of glare, none of which was ever borne out by the evidence. The question was asked. She said she could see. He accepted the answer. And then all of a sudden with Detective Pfister, he starts saying, well, north, south, east, west. Okay, well, where's north? Well, north is where this little N is. I put a big arrow around it, but that's where north is. Last time I checked, I'm sorry, I put west. This is east, and that is west, okay? The sun is setting over here. You see all these big bushes? Do you see that? Her car is parked up here. Where is the glare? Her car is insulated by the house, these bushes, and she has a direct line to the shooter that she said stopped. She didn't say it was a drive-by. She said it stopped behind her car. Tamisha Brown would not misidentify the defendant just because he's someone in jail and let the real killer go. Counsel wants you to think that just because, let me get it. She was sent a picture of Henry Hayes that she would say, you know what, Jamar Brooks, thank you. We're just going to make him the scapegoat. That's what we're going to do. We're going to just do him. Because I just want somebody to be held accountable. Not the right person. Really? Think about your common sense. So she was going to misidentify Henry Hayes and let the real killer just skip on down the street and just make sure that he doesn't get held responsible. Instead, what happened is Jamar Brooks did see him up on the other side of town. He did send that photo in. There are two guys there. If she wanted to put it on anybody, she would say, yeah, it was those two guys. Why did she identify the other guy? Ask yourself that. She only identified the person that she said was hanging out of the window, that was shooting the firearm, that she saw. Counsel argued this. He said, none of the other people at the scene did not identify the defendant. True. Mary Thomas indicated that she was down and gathering her things when the shooting started. She had a reason why she didn't observe it. Well, Reginald Williams, do you even have to ask yourself that? He's a gang member in the center of the shooting. You think he's going to come in here and say, yeah, I'm a gang member and they were shooting at me? Nope, he was completely uncooperative. Thomas Brown, he said, yeah, I was walking up and then all the shooting shot and I dropped to the ground. He has a reason why. Jordan Harris was in the side yard. How in the world could he have seen? But what did Tamisha do? What do you know that she did? She said she was talking to Reginald Williams. He turns around and starts walking. Then she sees the car. She looks in her rearview mirror. And that's what they're designed to do. Yards, sometimes miles away. You can see cars. She looked in her rearview mirror and she saw this defendant hanging out, shooting. And it was before her glass shattered. She did not duck down. She did what a brave mother would do. She put that car in drive as soon as she could get her faculties about her. She made it through this little area and drove her car. Oh, 6 o'clock traffic? 6 o'clock traffic doesn't really impact the east side over there in that area until you start getting to where she was, which was down, I can't remember if it's State or Union. That's how she drove the chance. There's no 6 o'clock traffic on Pippin Street. jury should have used a photo spread for Tamisha Brown to identify Henry Hayes. Let me follow that through with some logic, okay? We know that Tamisha Brown identified this defendant through that Facebook photo that Jamari Brooks sent to her. If the police went and put Henry Hayes, I don't know where it is, Henry Hayes in a photo spread of 6, and then she said, yeah, that's him. Right there, that's him. I know he shot and killed my baby. You know what the argument would be then? Let me follow it through. Well, of course she identified him because she's already seen a Facebook photo of him. What difference does that make? It would still be an argument that they would make. Instead, the police didn't do anything wrong. All they did was say, hey, send us a photo that you saw. You're going to document it. That's what you have in evidence. There wouldn't be any greater weight that you could give that identification because she's already seen him. She's already identified him. He was on the, Detective Scott was on the phone. And he says, well, you know, she was just any light-skinned male in Jacksonville. Really? Really? Well, the very brief description that she gave, aren't the circumstances surrounding that? That's what you need to look at. That woman was coming home from learning that her baby was dead in the early morning hours, learning that her child was dead. Do you think Detective Scott was like, okay, ma'am, give me every single thing that you saw, please, No, neither one of them said that. She said she was too upset, and Detective Scott said she was too upset. What does Tamisha Brown tell you? She doesn't overextend herself. She said the front seat passenger had on a mask and he had dark skin on. The back seat passenger did not have on a mask, and that the backseat passenger was leaning out shooting, and the backseat passenger was light-skinned black male. That's what she initially told the police. I've already covered this, but they didn't have anything to do with it. Justice doesn't require perfection. Yeah, it would have been great for them to put him in a photo spread and have her identified, but that's not what happened. We live in a day and time that Facebook is so pervasive in our lives. The police just had her sign and document the photograph. Ask yourself this, how do you know? Let's just say Tamisha Brown, she's in cahoots and just is a big old conspiracy to get old Henry Hayes, and she just wants to identify him. Why does the evidence line up with what she has to say? She saw him shooting at the back window shattered, and then she was focused on his face. And this is how you know. You ask yourself this, not whether you like these people, not whether you like Tamisha Brown, but this. Does a witness's testimony agree with the other testimony and other evidence in the case? And what do you have? She said that that person was leaning out. Leaning out. You have these shell casings, a lot of them at the scene, all of these, leaning out. They end up on the ground. Unlike what Mr. Hernandez argued to you, is that they fall exactly where the person is. You know different. That is, casings are metal, that's hard ground. Common sense will tell you that they can dump, roll, whatever. They ended up all over the place. That is not indicative of exactly where anyone was actually shooting. We know it was in the area and they ended up out. What isn't at the scene? What isn't there? The rifle. She said that person was not out. So we know that the front seat passenger was shooting the rifle. We know that the person shooting the 9 was outside, just like she said. And it ended up on the top, on the side of this car too. He implied it, I'm just going to cover it, that there wasn't an attempted murder of Tamisha Brown and Mary Thomas. Well, we know that the bullet strikes on the car say different. That is, his intent to shoot, it didn't matter. That car was in the way, he's shooting into that car, it hit on the driver's side too, underneath the muffler, and Mary Thomas was mere inches from death. Mere inches from death. He wasn't in the white Toyota Corolla. That was argued to you over and over. Well, we know that the defendant's same cell phone You have it in evidence. State's Exhibit 456. This VTE cell phone. We know that it was hooked up to Ms. Williams' Bluetooth. And counsel's like, well, you don't know when it got hooked up. Well, this is where common sense comes into play. We know that it was after the carjacking, which is January 28, 2016. We know it is after the fact that it was a couple days later. And then he blames us for not having her radio destroyed to further confirm it. But guess what? You got your common sense. It was placed on the Bluetooth after January 28th. You know the defendant's phone was pinging on the east side of Jacksonville, and he tried to say, oh, well, there's a 2-mile radius, so therefore it could not be my client that's in the car, because he said, oh, well, Miss Wright drew a big old circle around here. Well, guess where he isn't? Guess where he isn't? He isn't over here, where all these other calls are. He's not over there. Where is he? He's on the east side of Jacksonville. Let me tell you a little bit about that call, okay? He don't answer it. Why? Because he was hunting. We know it was after that time period. He said, JV's got it. Then we know if he's just out doing who knows what, playing bingo, reading books or something, why is he searching this? Over and over and over. And then when it's parked, we know pretty much from his phone records on January 30th, that's about the time he dumped the car. I don't even got no car right now. He backs it in so that that's not visible. The same thing he's been searching 12 times. From the time he gets the car and he searches News4Jax, trying to figure out if the carjacking that Sanquan Bradford committed on an 8-month pregnant woman hit the news, and that isn't in the system. You don't need to tear that radio apart because he said it himself that he's in the white car. Counsel argued, well, he's not associated with the MAC 90. Well, what about this old picture? Was that MAC 90 just found in no place? No. That MAC 90 was found on Helena Street. This is what Detective Bolin showed you. The historical, that is, that he's associated with that particular location, and that you've seen the video make it back that's made in close time to that. This MAC 90 is special to them. They named it after their fallen gang member, Lil Kendre. They weren't getting rid of it unless absolutely, positively necessary. That is, police officers serving a search warrant and kicking in doors. The defendant was not in the car. We talked about that because of the 2-mile radius. Let me go back. It's a little out of order. I'm sorry. But we know the call happens at 5:58, and then 3 minutes later, this is where the car was. Why wouldn't he answer the call? We already talked about that. The estimated time on Ms. Jones proves that he wasn't in the white car. I beg to differ. Counsel had to at least admit it that that was only an estimate. People estimate all the time. But we know that he says that he's in the white car earlier on in that particular day. Counsel argues that Hayes wasn't the shooter in the murder of Aiden McClendon. There's no forensics showing that the defendant was in possession of this gun, and the state didn't test the ammunition loaded in there. Well, you heard the testimony of Detective James, who indicated that this firearm, showing the jury State's Exhibit 298, is very rusty. It's not conducive for fingerprints, so we know why there are no fingerprints on this gun. And it is distinctive. Just like Pete Lorder's office said, this should be a rifle. This should be a rifle. That is, there should be a long stock that you hold up against your shoulder like this, and you start trying to shoot. Okay? That's what you try to do. But they've modified it. They've done it so that you can hold it with one hand, like Peanut Butter Zobble did. They've modified it so it's more easy to carry. They've modified it so that if they wanted to, they could just sit it with the clip outside and start shooting. Not leaning out. And then the thing that ejects this casing out can bounce all inside that car. So for counsel then to argue, oh, well, you know what? The shooter of the MAC 90 had to have been sitting in the back seat. The simple fact is, no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. And are there any forensics on that gun? No. Let's talk about the time frame. The MAC 90, they kept it because his little Kendra, it was found on January 31st, 2016 in a search warrant. It was thrown on top of a roof and they got it. The 29th, all that time, all that searching on the internet, all of that time. You think they wouldn't wipe it down? We know, even if we had processed all those bullets, I don't know where they are. Thank you. Sorry. 40 bullets. 40 bullets. We know this is a reload. What would that tell you? We know this is a reload. You know from all of the trajectory that we have in this case is fired, that gun, that MAC 90, was fired over and over and over and over again. If we had found his fingerprints on it, it wouldn't tell you anything because we know that's a reload. There are 40 in that magazine, filled to capacity. The Glock 26, Super Bowl Sunday. Man, oh man, is Henry Hayes unlucky. He's out there, going up there, eat chicken wings with his good old friend, JB, and JB didn't take the gun off of him. Instead, he tried to throw it in a bucket behind Rashawn Jackson, and we found it. That's why his DNA's on it. Plus, JB likes that gun. Maybe JB wanted to have the big gun and gave Henry the little gun. Who cares? We know he's armed because he said he is. They asked him, 10-4, you stick that little in? Literally seconds, and when I say seconds, 30 seconds later, he goes, laugh out loud, man, always. That's on the day that Aiden was killed. Can you really discount that? Of who had those firearms? I made the argument that Richardson couldn't swap out guns. Well, we have the video of all the little guns, and Saquon Bradford went over them, but you had JB's gun at the top, Tico's at the bottom, Henry's on flanking him, one with the drum magazine. And remember the principal theory. It's not the ultimate gun that killed him. It's a contributory action. That is, this was not, and I take issue with counsel calling this a firefight. There was no fight back for Tamisha Brown. She was caught in a gang shooting, all coming in one direction. Reginald Williams tried to fire back, but you know that suspect vehicle was not hit, not one time. This was a gang shooting, a hail of bullets. If she went left, she's in trouble. If she went right, she's still in trouble. Every single one of those bullets, the Glock 26, the MAC 90 that penetrated her car, kept going through the 710 Spears Street, kept going through 716 Spears Street, kept going through 720 Spears Street. All of them. It's some word, some act. Not the ultimate act, some word, some act. You know, it doesn't matter who was firing what gun. It matters that they were there and that they were firing and Aiden McClendon was murdered. The defendant held the firearm the same way that the firearms examiner did. Well, yeah, right. Pete Lardizabal's firing into a water tank to recover evidence. That is not what they were out there doing. They were out there hunting, one-upping, making sure that they can come up and say, and maybe make another song about it. Maybe. They could hold a gun like this. They could hold a gun like this. They could be tracking. They could do whatever they want to do. We know those bullets were going everywhere, although in the same direction as Reginald Williams. Too many variables. That's what Pete Lardizabal said. Whoa, whoa, whoa. No, too many variables. They want to hold it boys in the hood. They want to hold it PCE on the block. They want to hold it up in the air. Who cares? They holding it boys in the hood. It explains why one couldn't go straight up in the air. They holding it like Tamisha did. Few of them hit her car the way it did. How miraculous. How miraculous are these two things? I don't know if it's sunk in yet. They were able to clean out that car. They missed this. They missed it. It was down in the seat, and they missed it. The fact that they missed this, and then this. This is from Tanisha Brown's car. Only bullet that has 80 McClendon's blood on it. The only bullet that even matches anything that was found in her car. Only one of value. He probably got sick of me. Nothing of value, nothing of value. This does. This has value. This has 80 blood on it. This does. And you miss this. These two go together because they match that gun. One casing, one bullet, one defendant. And what are the odds? What are the odds that that same car that this defendant dumps has those 9mm shell casings match the scene? It's just unlucky. No. Henry Hayes is not a criminal gang member. The police wrote a report documenting a gang member after the fact. Mr. Hutton covered it. Who doesn't write a police report after the crime occurs? Henry Hayes did not commit this crime to further the interests of the criminal gang. He begs to differ. How do you know that the only thing that matters is respect? It's not money. It's not gold chains. It's not those things. It's this. It's in his phone. Big bro. I might not be gang or be on the block. OML, all my life, I got so much love and respect for you boys. I got so much love and respect. How did they get respect? Violence? Big bro, I'll slide with you. That's why I stay low-key and make sure the niggas don't know who I am. So if I drill, they ain't even gonna see it coming. On my life. On my life, all that matters out there is respect. And what does he say? What does he say? Faux show. Faux show. Saquon Bradford committed this crime to avenge the shooting of Ashley Clark. Really? Really? He did this? All this? And somehow he was able to skate through with just Ashley Clark, being able to make him somehow incriminated? Really? Let's talk about Ashley Clark. They're going to get up here, well, he has gotten up here and said, well, Saquon Bradford had a felony conviction, and they want you to ignore that? 10 times, one crime of dishonesty. She's dating multiple members of 187 when at the time that she supposedly had made the statement to her, she already had a boyfriend. She had just broken up with D. Rose, and now she's with him, some other little young boy. And then he wants to date her and she dates this defendant and he's only quote unquote a real close friend, but she's got his name tattooed on her body. They really present this defendant's wannabe girlfriend as the one that just derails everything that Sanquan Bradford says. What does Sanquan Bradford say about her? She's a pass around. All right. What you don't see about Sanquan Bradford, in the weeks leading up to this crime, you don't see Sanquan Bradford riding around in the car going, where are the ops at? Where are they? Henry Hayes is. You don't see Sanquan Bradford posting on Facebook that it's open season on these ends. Henry Hayes is. You don't see Sanquan Bradford saying he's hunting. Sanquan Bradford didn't have a car. He sold his carjacked car to them for $60. And then, I already talked about that. She's a pass around. Cell phone Matt, he's on the west side. He's on the west side, and Hayes puts him over there by the shooting. Who is on the block? Henry Hayes, calling him out, saying, look, they're nowhere to be found. You're going to get this instruction, and I want to talk about it for just a moment, about Sanquan Bradford. It refers to him. You must consider the testimony of some witnesses with more caution than others, and for example, a witness who hopes to gain more favorable treatment in his or her own case may have a reason to make a false statement in order to strike a good bargain with the state. Well, the bargain has already been set. What his sentence is, that's up to the court. However, it says, it continues, this is particularly true when there is no other evidence tending to agree with what the witness says about the defendant. It says that you shouldn't just blindly believe Sanquan Bradford just because he took the stand. But what you should do is do the same thing with him that you do with every other witness and compare to the evidence. And I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, Sanquan Bradford is, he carjacked an 8-month-old lady, 8-month-old pregnant lady. He is not necessarily likable, okay? But it is what it is. This is how we got the suspect vehicle in this car, and he came in here and told you that. But what did he say? He admitted that he carjacked the lady, okay, even though he said, look, you know, when the police first came, I ain't trying to hem myself up. Did I deny it? Yep. But he came into here to you and told you exactly what he said, exactly what he did. And she identified him. And the other thing about it is that she said he was a shorter one, looking like he was being controlled by the larger person. He even identified that person for you. And he texted the defendant approximately 15 minutes after the carjacking. You've seen those. And in the text message, he said that JB had already gotten the car. There they are. How could he make that up? Okay. How could he make that up now that he struck the deal? He can't. You know why? Because he's telling you the truth. 15 minutes after, she was carjacked at about midnight. I'm sorry, about 12:15. Sanquan Bradford in the evidence stated that he knew all of the members of PCE. Well, he's a wannabe maybe, okay? Was he in between the two groups? Yeah. And guess what he does have? He was able to identify everybody. We went through picture after picture. I like this one because he even identified the baser in the back. Oh, he's funny. Okay? And then he said JB, Tico, Kojak, Crackerjack, Ray. He identified all of them. Okay? And what else do you have to support that? Well, you have his phone. You have Kojak, Crackerjack, JB, Ray, Tico. And it goes on and on. You can look at all of them. But that's just some of it. How can he make that up? He can't. Okay? Because we took that phone, even though he was trying to no, I don't have a phone. Throw it over here so they don't find it. And he does not have one of those fancy phones. He has one of these flip-looking phones, old school, where he's like, it takes too long to even delete stuff. He testified he left 187 after getting into an argument. You have his text message. He said it was over a girl. And he said PCE didn't even really accept him. You have his Facebook post. You have this, the song, We Might F with Rondo. He explained that too. He said, well, you might love me. And that hurt him because he was trying to gain favor with them, but they didn't even accept him. And they put it on full-blown blast. This is what you ask yourself about the witnesses, not whether you like them. It's these. Did the witness have an opportunity to see and know the things about which the witness testified? I say that in relation to Sanquon Bradford because they don't hang out with nuns. They don't hang out with the mayor. They don't hang out with, Molly the housewife. They hang out with Sanquon Bradfords. Not my choice, theirs. Did the witness seem to have some accurate memory? I would submit yes. Was the witness honest and straightforward in answering the attorney's questions? I would submit the answer is yes. And this big one, and whether the offer of any money, preferred treatment, or other benefit was in order to get the witness to testify. He told you how dangerous what he's doing is. It's not a laughing matter. It goes against every grain in his body to say those things. Let's talk about premeditation for just one moment. It's the act in and of itself that can indicate premeditation in this case, and we have it. It's the planning ahead of time that can indicate premeditation, and we have it. It's the circumstances surrounding the killing. Mr. Hernandez argued to you, he said, well, we spent all this time talking about motive. We spent all this time talking about all this other stuff. It's to give you perspective. That you see, this case did not start on January 29, 2016. Instead, it started so many weeks earlier. That storm of violence was brewing off of the edge of the cusp of 710 Spearing Street, and they had no idea that it was coming until it came, and they were on Facebook Live, and then all of a sudden, Tamisha Brown was in the middle of a violent shooting. You see, it didn't start that day. And it's the conduct of the accused. What did he do? What did he do that shows you that what's in his brain was premeditated murder? What did he do? It's his actions before, after the murder, the witness testimony, and the forensic download of his phone, the social media posts, and common sense that should be your greatest guide to your answer, okay? And these are the rules for deliberation. That is that you have to follow the law. The case must be only decided by the evidence, and your verdict must not be influenced of feelings of prejudice, bias, or sympathy. Those things leave outside. We want you to make a wise and legal decision in this matter. And your duty is to determine the defendant has been proven guilty. That's it. Not whether he's a good person or a bad person, but whether he's been proven guilty. I submit to you, yes. He has an admitted beef. I was going to play the video, but I'm not. It's a dark video. I'm going to describe it for you. I'm not going to play it, okay? There's a dark video. And he's standing outside the store and is shooting up. He talks and admits to the beef that it was going on. He didn't need Ashley Clark to say it. He's on video telling you exactly why he shot at Ducci that day. It was not personal animosity. Instead, it was a beef between him and his blood. D. Rose was related to him by blood, okay? And then the 187 gang members decided to take up for D. Rose, and then it was open season on them. His words. D. Rose. The whole reason from switching back and forth, this defendant bucking him, he says it on that video. He says it. He said, an N buck me. It's about respect. It's about respect. An N buck me. It's supposed to be my blood. And then they take up for him. You're going to pay. This is how you know. Who's effing the city up? They're at his announcement, back to them. And then his actions after, the cover-up. Lil' bruh, delete some of your comments on here. Crackerjack, what comments? Yeah, now watch what you post. Then where does he go? To take down that thing that Thomas Brown saw and his cousin recorded and sent to him. There it is. Where does he go? Facebook. Then here he goes. News for Jax, news for Jax, news for Jax. 22-month-old murder mobilizes community. We know he saw that. We know he saw that. I'm going to sit down. You all have given us great attention. So important. Okay? I tell you this because counsels argue to you that what is missing. But let me tell you that this one word, justice, it does not require perfection. If it could be defined in just one word, it would just mean the truth. The state of Florida is not standing before you today to try to garner sympathy. Instead, we're asking you for justice. This evidence overwhelmingly says who killed Aiden and what happened to him. I've heard it said many, many times that a jury's verdict can't change the past. True. But what your verdict will do is it will define forever. We've been talking to you. We've been arguing in front of you. Now it's your time to speak. What will you say about what happened on January 29, 2016? How will you define when a mom who has her baby strapped in a car seat decides to drop her grandmother off home? How will you describe the fact that when she parks her car and her grandmother is trying to gather her things, that this defendant and his friends decide that they're going to pull up and unleash violence on them, trying to make a name for themselves in this town? How are you going to define it? Are you going to say it's nothing? Are you going to say that the evidence has been presented to you doesn't really mean anything? That this isn't a gang? That the detective wrote the report after? Or are you going to recognize it for what it is? That is that this defendant drove over there not for any other reason but to make a name for himself in the criminal gang. And when you do that, and you unleash that many bullets aimed at the rival gang member, are you going to call it what it is? That is first-degree murder, and attempted murder in the first degree, and discharge from a firearm from a vehicle? I submit to you, yes. Give us justice. Thank you.